somebody listening GCC word for the first time, Global Capability Center, what they actually do.
GCC is not merely an ODC owned by the parent company.
Mr. Avinash Rao, who has 24 years of experience leading GCC, setting up GCC from ground. So we're going to talk about GCC at length, what global capability centers are. We're going to talk about product management, careers in product, careers in consulting, and we're going to try to draw parallels among all three of them.
How can we leverage the talent that is available in India?
People think that all the GCCs, or at least 70% of them, are operating in an IT space, which is incorrect.
Why the sudden desire on the part of companies to set up GCCs in India? If you understand technology and you understand the market,
Correct.
You're very valuable. The question is, are you a person who has a high need for change?
Journey starts from you.
The journey starts from the person. The journey doesn't start from the company.
So what, as per you, will reward more? Somebody getting more expertise in one role in different sector, or somebody getting deep expertise in one role in one sector?
People are asking the wrong question. And I think what the career company is doing is really helping them with that question. Companies will reward handsomely people who are able to make a difference.
The guy who writes a process is very important.
It's very important.
If you now just build a persona of what kind of personality thrive in product management, what kind of personality thrive in consulting, and what in GCC, what that would be. In a simple term, if I can hire one DevOps engineer in US, how many I can hire in India?
You're putting me in a bit of a spot there, okay? I'll answer it in two ways.
How much money one can make in GCC at different levels of his career? And we talked about cost as a key component of GCC.
Yes.
Now, if tomorrow cost increases, does that value proposition of setting up GCCs in India will still stay relevant? Hi, welcome to another episode of Clarity with the Career Company. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Avinash Rao, who has 24 years of experience leading GCC, setting up GCC from ground, has also started his career as a consultant, product of IMB, worked with IBM, Wipro, PwC, then moved to product, and then now setting up a GCC. So we're going to talk about GCC at length, what global capability centers are. We're going to talk about product management, careers in product, careers in consulting, and we're going to try to draw parallels among all three of them. Avinash, welcome to the Clarity with the Career Company.
Lovely to be here. It's a really interesting topic and a hot topic that we have today. There's obviously a great deal of interest in GCCs. And I think this conversation should be really interesting for anyone who wants to understand GCCs a little more and exactly what's happening in that area.
Perfect. So we're going to talk about three things in this podcast. One is the GCCs, what the global capability centers are, what are the roles in it, what are the career trajectories look like, product management and consulting. Because these are the hot three things in B schools, and as you know, we operate in that placement space. So we're going to also talk about product management and consulting.
Great.
Sounds good. So why don't you give your quick introduction to our audiences on what you have done?
I'll talk less about where I've worked and specifically what I've done. You can read that up on LinkedIn, right? That's not the interesting bit.
Correct.
I think the interesting bit is that I started as a developer. Within 2 years, I went to the person who was heading the India business of the company that I was working in. She was heading business operations. And I told her what a terrible job she was doing. And if I had her job, I would fix all the issues that we were having in that company of growth. I would fix everything in 6 months. She said, I'll give you 1 year. Why don't you join my team and help me fix it? Right? Instead of just complaining about it. The reason I tell this story is this is a theme that I've seen it throughout my career. That if somebody has the passion to not just sit back and complain,
Correct.
but to stand up and say, hey, here's a problem. I'm willing to step up and I'm willing to do something about it. I have not worked in a single company that has put that person down.
Correct.
Leaders will immediately say, yes, come, work with us. Let's make it happen.
Correct.
Right?
If you come with a problem and also with a solution.
With a solution. Or an approach to a solution.
Approach to a solution.
Yes, because
Correct.
some of these problems are, very intractable. But that, I think, is one defining feature of a lot of things I've done. There have been so many times that I've put up my hand up and say, you know what, this is a problem. I'm willing to work on this problem and try to make it better. And that has taken me through consulting. Consulting obviously being a fairly high travel job. So when my daughter was born, I kind of stepped away from that and started working on really, really large programs, building departure control systems, for example. And from there, logically, that took me to product. And I've been VP of products and launched 2 products into the marketplace, starting from inception to launch. And then moved to the GCC space because there's just so many interesting things that are happening there. And set up a GCC in India from compliance all the way to setting up their sales, their delivery process, the product processes in the Indian entity.
Lovely. So you have spent 24 years, started with consulting, then went to product, and then GCCs, and now they are making more than 1 million IRR. So somebody listening GCC word for the first time, Global Capability Center, what they actually do?
So to understand GCCs, we must first understand its predecessor. Right? Its spiritual predecessor was the ODCs, the Offshore Development Centers. Obviously, ODCs are very familiar. We know that our services firms have spent many years perfecting that model. Why the transition then from having ODCs working with significant Indian players? Why the sudden desire on the part of companies to set up GCCs in India? Obviously, there are some things where the government is giving favorable support for it, etc. But that's not the true driver for that change. So to understand why ODCs, we've moved away from ODCs and towards GCCs. A GCC is not merely an ODC owned by the parent company, right? That's the first thing that I think we need to understand. That there was in the past companies which had offshore development centers and they were paying for skills, talent, which worked very, very well. Now what we see and what a GCC really means, if you look at it from a definition standpoint, is a global capability center where a parent entity has set up a fully owned entity in India.
Okay.
And this Indian entity often delivers a wide range of services for that specific company. Now, in the past, what would happen when we were in the ODC model is that there were specialist different players that you would go to a different vendor for, let's say, development. You'd go to a different vendor for support because they each excelled in those areas. But what GCCs are doing is really bringing in all the support, the capabilities that are needed for the parent under one umbrella, right? And that is the real opportunity that GCCs are opening up for their parent entity, because these are no longer contractors who are doing work against a certain contract where you're saying, hey, this is the scope of work, here's the quality parameters that we want. Once those 300 test cases passed, then we have formally accepted this piece of software, and then that project is done. The nature of that relationship is moved away from, here is a set of projects, here's a fixed set of scope, here's a fixed set of quality, to how can we leverage the talent that is available in India, right? The cost arbitrage doesn't hurt, obviously, but how do we leverage the talent availability and scale to really make a difference in that parent company's business? That's what GCCs are really all about.
So you were saying there are multiple functions earlier working in a different silos, now putting together and working for a one company. But can we in a simple term say that everything other than sales is now come to India and working as a one unit in sync with the sales?
What you're describing is an ideal scenario. You would want, if that company does not operate in the Indian market, then obviously they wouldn't have sales.
Correct.
But if you conceptually think about it, it is a mini version of the entire organization, which includes product, which includes development. And under development, I'm including testing and DevOps and all the other cloud and other technical skills that are needed in order to actually build, right? Particularly in software. And then you have the support, because we're no longer thinking about it as here's a person who's doing something for cloud. You're no longer hiring a AWS cloud engineer. You're hiring a GCC cloud engineer.
Correct.
Because that person is now thinking, this utilization of cloud, how does it help my customers, right? The focus of that person is now the customer. It is, they need to master the technology, but their primary focus is the customer, not the technology.
Correct. If you don't understand what your company does and what your end users are, and that's where values and operating principles are being installed very well, so you understand whom you are working for. Very true. So what is the total number of GCCs currently in India, if there is any number around
the
it?
last figure that I've heard, I think from a reasonably credible industry figure, is in the range of 1950. So it's almost 2,000 GCCs which are in India. It is expected to grow to about 2,600 in the next couple of years.
Oh, great. So a lot of employment will come through GCCs, and that's where we come to the roles from the candidate point of view. So what are the roles that GCCs offers?
So if you think about what we said before, which is that you take a miniature version of the parent organization, what are the key things that the parent organization does, right? It does product. What it really does is that it does the conceptualization and the definition of the product.
The research part of it.
The research part of it, the opportunity part of it.
Okay.
Right? That you are understanding a certain market and you're saying, here is an opportunity for us, right? So once you've conceptualized that and you've got that package ready, you're obviously going to build it. And in order to build it, you're going to have multiple roles. You're going to have analysts, and particularly for our audience, right? You're going to have product managers in the conceptualization stage. You're going to have business analysts who are essentially understanding those needs and translating it for the dev teams. You obviously have your process roles. You have the scrum masters, you have the product owners who are working on the build. You have two types of technical staff. You have technical staff who are very skilled in, let's say, the MERN stack or Java or whatever it is that you're working on. In today's scenario, you might be excellent at using AI tools to auto-generate that code, right? So what you need are people who are able to build the concept. You also have a second type of role who are experts in that particular domain.
Correct.
So if, and these are not just product managers, right? The product has conceptualized something, but you need experts in, let's say, insurance, in adjustments, in a particular specialization, the corner cases that might happen, right? So there are all these experts who are in the GCC who critically understand both the domain as well as that particular technology, and these are these intersectional roles. What's happening is that intersectional roles are becoming super important. If you understand technology and you understand the market,
Correct.
You're very valuable.
Correct.
If you understand technology and you understand how that impacts a customer, that's very valuable. But if you're only good at a technology, you're slightly less valuable, because value is being delivered more and more through these intersectional roles. So to go back to your question, people can look for product roles. They can look for BA roles, which grow into becoming domain experts. There's obviously a fair amount of technology and process roles. And there are roles that are to do with what is generally lumped under operations. Now we call it operations.
Program management.
Program management. A lot of these program and project roles are looking at a certain process that gets executed. And that process could be support.
Correct.
You're a bank, you issue cards. Now, the support for those cards from the users is often run out of the GCC in India. And that has to be managed.
Correct.
And does a AWS expert help there? Not necessarily. What you really need are people who understand, who have expertise on that process. How do they make that process better? How do they bring AI in? Can they redesign that process to say that what used to be done in a certain manner is now being done better? Better not from the perspective of how many people are on it, but the experience that the customer gets. Because that's what the GCC values, right? That's what the GCC is looking for. How do you positively impact the customers of the entity, and not just, hey, I worked on this little bit and I made some improvement here.
Correct. So you are saying, so finance and marketing will also come into GCC in addition to what you said, product, service, program, project. And we also talked about DevOps and development teams, right? So a lot of people have notion that these are backend roles.
Right.
And in B schools, because TCC operates in campus placements, a lot of IIMs, their candidate says that, no, I don't want to go into, say, I don't want to name a company, but not their knowledge centers or capability centers, but into the front end of it. So is there all back-end roles, or what would you like to say about it?
A lot of what we consider back-end roles in GCCs are actually critical to the success of that company in that market.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people don't realize that.
Correct.
They tend to think of it as being, if you go back 10 years though, there's a reason for that. If you go back 10 years though, what people were rewarded for in an IT services company was different from what it gets rewarded in a GCC. If you were in some of these roles in a traditional IT services firm, in an ODC, let's say, or in a project, it might have been true. Even there, it wasn't really true, right? There was enough ways to grow, but it might have been true that those were relatively back-end roles, because the IT services firm did not reward that. Right? Because the incentives for a firm, when you work on a project for a different company, this company is paying you and you're working on a project for this company. Obviously, what this company wants is slightly different to what the client is paying for, right? So some of these were seen as back-end roles. However, you switch the context around. You're now in a GCC and you're working on one of their operational processes.
Which directly working with the client.
Directly working with the clients, directly working with the end clients, not just
your employer.
Not just your employer, right? You're working with end clients. You're making a difference there. Companies will reward handsomely people who are able to make a difference, because it directly impacts their business.
Correct. So it is very important to highlight that people think that all the GCCs, or at least 70% of them, are operating in an IT space, which is incorrect.
Correct.
There are a lot of healthcare GCCs. There are a lot of different sectors involved. So what is your take on the split?
Correct. So if you just take one domain, fintech. if fintech, and I heard this in one of your previous podcasts, that the expert they were saying that, look, you say BFSI and everybody thinks of banking and insurance.
Correct.
But BFSI is a lot more than
Only
banking.
30% roles are of finance.
Are of finance, exactly.
Correct.
Similarly, there are many different types of GCC animals, right? There are companies that are looking to get access to skills, right? It is not access to only a certain role, right? Because if you have a role and somebody can play that role and it's a very sharply well-defined role, that person can be anywhere. They don't have to come to India. They don't have to incorporate a GCC, deal with GST refunds and things like that, right? Why are literally thousands of companies spending the time, energy to set up their own entities in India, right? One, in India, sometimes हमको नहीं दिखता है, but it's not only a question of you have AWS engineers who are at a certain price point. It is also access to certain skills at a certain level of volume. If you go to other countries, I won't name, but Southeast Asia.
Volume and maturity.
Volume and maturity. So it's not a question of, am I able to find two people in a certain Southeast Asian country who are of a certain skill? Of course you can. Of course you can.
Correct.
But the critical mass of people where you will find experienced managers who can handle process, who've dealt across countries and time zones, who've dealt across multiple skills at volume.
Funnel है कि नहीं is the question. Instances तो मिल जाएंगे.
Instances मिल जाएंगे, but scale नहीं होगा.
Scale नहीं होगा.
So India for GCCs is at that point where it is able to scale. Now, nothing that I just said, except the word AWS, has anything to do with IT.
Correct.
It is a capability where you're looking for people, you're looking for managerial talent, you're looking for technical talent, you're looking for support talent. You're looking at it at scale. You're looking at it in an organization that is aligned with what you are.
Correct.
You can do that for healthcare. You can do that for telemedicine. I mean, there's no end to the type of companies that are coming in. Very simply because of historical accident. We're very familiar with software.
With IT.
With IT. Because we've grown up in a lot of us have grown up in that IT ecosystem. A lot of the globalization story of India is linked to IT. Which is why we tend to know about them a great deal. But there are so many product companies, and the expertise that these product companies need are from the domain, not just from technology. So on the surface, they may look like an IT firm, but they're actually building very, very specialized solutions which are specific to a particular market or a particular need.
Correct. So people want to, in top B schools also, people want to go into consulting. So the reason why they want to go in consulting is so they can get a exposure to different sectors in less time.
Yes.
If they can work for 5-6 years, they'll be able to hands-on to 6-7 sectors. They understand the nitty-gritties of retail, FMCG, banking, finance.
Correct.
Where if they go deep into any bank, they will understand BFSI only, right? So jack of all trade versus jack of all trade and master of none. So what, as per you, will reward more? Somebody getting more expertise in one role in different sector, or somebody getting deep expertise in one role in one sector?
Actually, I think the reason I love these podcasts is because people are asking the wrong question. And I think what the career company is doing is really helping them with that question.
Yeah.
The question is not, should I become jack of all trades, or should I go deep into a domain? The question is, are you a person who has a high need for change? I'm an MBA student.
Journey starts from you.
The journey starts from the person. The journey doesn't start from the company. Starting the journey from the company is fundamentally incorrect.
Correct. What is trending is a wrong question.
Well, yeah.
It's a step 4, not a wrong question.
Correct.
But a step
Correct.
4. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to give a very trite example. Okay.
Sure.
There are many luxury cars in the market.
Yeah.
You pick one. Is that inherently better than the next luxury car?
No.
No. There is something which appeals to you.
Correct.
To something in us that says, hey, you know what, this particular brand, it stands for something. I relate to that. And therefore, I'm going to buy that particular car.
Yeah.
It's the same with your career. Are you somebody who has a extremely high need for change, a desire to understand many different things? Are you curious about the world? Right? If you don't have these 3 attributes, don't go be a consultant. It doesn't matter how much you get paid. Every career, if you excel, you will get paid a fairly large amount of money.
Correct.
Right? But the question is, you have to excel.
You have to excel.
You have to excel. And you have a much greater chance of excelling in a consulting career if you have a high need for change. If you're constantly scanning the environment and understanding what's happening with the world, how are things moving, right? Then consulting is a good fit for you. It has nothing to do with being a jack of all trades, right? Because you enjoy the process of consulting. You enjoy the process of engaging with problems. You enjoy the process of benchmarking it via your knowledge of the wider world and solving a problem for the customer. Then you're a good fit to be a consultant. Right? If you're somebody who likes to go much deeper into one area, and it doesn't matter what area you pick, right? Truly, it doesn't matter. Then you go in and you look at GCCs. GCCs reward people for spending time. Why? It has nothing to do with a HR policy that says, oh, let's reward people based on longevity. It is that it does take time to imbibe an organization's ways of working, their culture. And you can't imbibe that if you work in 4 companies in 3 years. Right? So I'm going to flip that around and say it starts with who the candidate is. It starts with what they want to do, who they are, actually, if you think about it, and then go from there.
I'll just take 5,000 feet view on this.
Yes.
So what you're saying is absolutely correct. But where this scarcity mindset came from, if you go a little back, 80s, our parents thought that if you get a sarkari job, if you get one job, because there was a scarcity of jobs, stick to it.
Yes.
Do everything that they say, stick to it, because job छूट गई तो that's it, end of the world.
Correct.
Then comes millennials, जहाँ पे उन्हें समझ आ गया, they got to know that if we are smart enough, if we are getting somebody 7 lakh rupees of sales, therefore they are paying 70,000, किसी और को देंगे, कोई और देगा, right? And now comes Gen Z. They know that there is an abundance of opportunity, and therefore now, after 70 years of independence, we have a luxury to think that opportunities are there. You don't have to think in terms of कि scope कहाँ है या कौन सी चीज़ चल रही है, and I have to learn that instead of what I am naturally good at. So in TCC, what the placement preparation that we do at IIMS, we start with know yourself. And lot of institutes still, not IIMS, but as you go down, lot of institutes is there that ये psychometric test हमें नहीं करना है. They say that we already do MBTI or some one other sort of a free test, and they say that that's enough. They don't want to invest on candidate knowing themselves because people think that I know enough of myself. And I go and tell them that give me 10 minutes and I prove you wrong. So much there's so much to know about ourselves because it's a continuous journey.
Yes.
Because we also had a very interesting debate with somebody saying that your problem statement says that people spend 2-3 years in figuring out after a job, and we want to give them 5, 10, 15 year view. We said to one VC that we want to give them 5, 10 year, 15 view, so they make a more conscious call and they pick the right job based on their fitment, and we save that 2-3 years of productive years. So VC asked me that, Marcy, but isn't it this 2-3 years of figuring out made them to the right job? I said, I buy that idea, but can you eliminate that by knowledge, by simulation?
By insight.
By insights. You can do it. So it's like you reinventing wheel every time. There are enough frameworks. फिर तो MBA मत कराओ. सब कुछ सीखने दो, right? सब कुछ ही फ्लोर पे जाके सीखने दो. Then why there is a call script?
Exactly.
Right? Why there is a product manual? Why there is OKRs? So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So coming back to you said GCCs in India has evolved and becoming a favorite place to open a GCC. So what we are doing very good that way, so that global companies are coming to India and opening GCC.
Right. So I'm going to step back a little bit and answer that question. Right. There's a framework called Kinefin.
Okay.
And it's a Welsh word, so I may be getting the pronunciation a bit off. Kinefin. But it's one of my favorite lenses of looking at the world.
Okay.
Right? And what the framework really says is that there are 5 different habitats or environments that we operate in. Right? 3 of them are of our interest. Some are chaos, disorder. We'll disregard those. We rarely come across those in our context that we are speaking about. But there are environments that companies operate in where life is simple, right? That 1 + 1 = 2. There are best practices. If you follow those best practices, you will achieve certain outcomes.
Correct.
That's a simple environment.
Tested.
The number of simple environments are becoming fairly less because the world...
Variables are increasing.
Variables are increasing. From the 70s, the world has become reasonably a complicated place. And a complicated in Kinefin is a certain definition. It says that there are good practices. There's no best practice because it's a complicated space. But if you follow those good practices, you will be able to scale. What ODC solved beautifully was a problem of scaling. Saying that we need IT, we need to build these, but we can break it down, the famous WBS. You do a work breakdown. You break everything down and you put it back together. And you can put it back together 8 months later, 12 months later, 18 months later, and there is value in it. Right? The world, what happened, and it coincides with the rise of the agile methods, right? Is the world started becoming more complex. And you've heard of VUCA, Bani, and all those things that are thrown around. But rather than focus on what the meaning of those terms are, what it really means is that there are very few situations, or relatively fewer situations, where it's either simple, where you have best practice, or you have complicated, where you have good practices. What you now have is complex, and complex has emergent practices, where there is something called path dependency. You do something, and that creates your path. Somebody else does something else, and that creates their path.
Dependencies.
Yes. Now, the great thing is that the market itself has expanded. So there are now opportunities available for multiple different paths. But if somebody sits and says, hey, I'm going to just follow blindly a playbook, they are unlikely to succeed, because that playbook will be disrupted by regulation changes, by social expectations, by competitors, because of all that uncertainty. We now need that you have entities which work with us in complete alignment. And that's the beauty of a GCC, right? That you can set up a GCC which presumably, hopefully, understands not just the technology that you need and the projects that need to be delivered, but it also understands your market. It understands your culture. And these are both equally important. You have to understand the parent company. You also need to understand the industry that they work in. And I'll give you this example, that when I was setting up this GCC, there was this behavior that we saw from people who used to visit us from the US. The parent company was in the US. And we used to find it very strange, right? Because these are all people who've gone to the Ivy, to the Ivy League. But anything they saw wrong. So, for example, I'm getting very specific. There was a rattle in the exhaust in the bathroom. And the CEO of our global entity literally took a screwdriver and tightened it. Because he says, this is who we are. We work with people who work with their hands. We work with movers. We work with.
There cannot be disconnect.
There cannot be a disconnect saying, okay, we're building products for them, but we have, boss, I went to an Ivy.
We'll call for someone to do it.
We'll call for somebody to do it. Right? And that is, after a meeting, they would put the chairs back. Which on the surface seemed very trivial to a lot of people. And we've hired these kids who are from IITs and IIMs, right? And they're sitting there saying, chair. Right? But this is not trivial at all, because it speaks to a certain worldview. And the parent is building products based on that worldview, right? It shows what they value.
Correct.
And if the Indian entity cannot understand that, there will always be a gap. If you just go on to Google and say, problems with GCCs, a lot of them will say, okay, they've become, they do provide value because of cost arbitrage, but they don't necessarily have, they're not doing innovation. What is this? What is this word innovation, right? One of the most abused, overused words, but it's actually critical. You can innovate for the target market in the way that the parent innovates, only when you are aligned both with the parent and the market.
Absolutely.
And unless this alignment happens, this alignment is near impossible to do with an ODC, because the commercial incentives there are different. But now suddenly you have this opportunity where there's this country which seems to have the right kind of talent, it has the right kind of management, it has the right kind of scale. And there's an opportunity for you to set up an entity fully owned so that it aligns culturally, and the government is incentivizing that. So I think the stars are really aligning, and hence the growth that we see in the number of GCCs.
So you said about a cost arbitrage.
Yes.
And so what is actually, how much is the difference? So in a simple term, if I can hire one DevOps engineer in US, how many I can hire in India?
You're putting me in a bit of a spot there, okay? I'll answer it in two ways. One, I'll give you a very simplistic view, saying that in the past that it used to be that for a certain level of skill, you would get 4 people for the cost of one. It used to be.
25%.
25%. That's no longer true.
That must be, yeah.
Right now, we are at a 1.5 to 2.
At the dollar value of 85.
At the dollar value of 85, right? And with the depreciating, it is getting slightly better. But
So are you just talking about a tech talent, or it's a universal for tech management?
Management talent in, let's say, Western Europe or America, the US, where a lot of GCCs have come from, are incredibly expensive.
Incredibly expensive.
Incredibly expensive.
Correct.
I think the arbitrage for management roles
Is even more
than for technology roles.
Interesting.
However, the question really is that GCCs are asking themselves is, are we getting people who at a management level are fully aligned with us? That's where the
bottleneck is.
That's where the bottleneck is, right? So the question is not one of arbitrage. The arbitrage still exists. I don't think the arbitrage is going anywhere, right? It may not be as much as it was. For technology roles, I think we've actually bid up a lot of jobs, which is why it's become 1.5 to 2 rather than. But for management roles, I still think it's 1:3.
Yeah, I'm sure of that data because consulting, if you see the consulting as a market in India versus market in US, you see the graph and you'll get to know that we are a long way to go.
Correct.
But in tech, I worked in US staffing for some time at the start of my career. If you want to hire one SDA one, if you pay 60K or say 80K, it's a very less budget. And if you pay 60K to somebody in India, तुमको CTO level का बंदा मिल जाएगा.
Correct.
75 lakh rupees if you
Yes.
85,
Yes.
75 lakh 80 lakh rupees if you pay,
Yes.
you will get an architect level guy.
Correct.
So that's where I think the tech is where the huge component comes. But then the solution I have many times is that I have a deep curiosity to ask this architect and the SDAs, who do you report to?
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Because I want to see whether that guy is sitting there Gora or not, or is still a Indian guy.
Yes.
And it is changing.
It is changing.
It is changing. 15, 17, every 3 SDA, there was a one product manager sitting there. So they to ensure that they are building the right thing. Now that guy is also Indian. Now he's sitting in GCC. Now their boss is also Indian, sitting in GCC.
Correct.
And so they are trusting our management folks more and more. And if you see B school hiring data, we see every placement report with a lens. And GCC's contribution is increasing like anything.
Yes.
1980s, 1985, the BFSI used to dominate. I'm telling you, in 3 years, all GCCs will look in the
Yes.
placement reports.
Yes.
But very interesting insight. I was with IIM Udaipur when I was leading placements, and one guy said, and there was a very famous company visited, MBBs of the world, and their capability center came. And I thought students would be extremely happy. Few of them
Yes.
will come and say, thank you for bringing that.
Yes.
And they did. But one guy came and said that, sir, why this company we brought and not the company, the main company?
Right.
No,
The actual consulting wing rather
consulting
than
wing rather than
the
a
research wing.
research wing. And they have their own criteria that they go to ABC KLI for consulting wing, and they go to second gen IM for knowledge center. And as and when they prove their metal there, they bring the consulting division also. Bain also have a similar thing. McKinsey also have a similar thing. So I said, what is your notion about this knowledge wing? And he said that these are some backend roles. This engineer, UG guys can do it. UG from Sriram College, UG from top notch V schools can do it. Then why we into that? So my question to you is, I took too much time to come on the point. That anyone join as a BA in GCC? How fast they can climb a ladder? How the 2 year, 5 year, 7 year, 10 year look like?
Correct. There are some cultural things in India, right? We are very high power distance. We know that we are higher power distance than a lot of other countries.
Higher power distance meaning?
So in Netherlands, for example, so I was visiting the Netherlands. I was walking by in Den Haag, and the Prime Minister walked by.
Correct.
The Prime Minister walked by. There were 2 security people at a reasonable distance. In India, there will be 3 pilot cars, 4 ambulances, 3 SUVs with the ministers and the minions, and then the Prime Minister's car or the Chief
VIP.
Minister's car, or the VIP. And your value as a VIP is measured by how many SUVs are preceding you, which is not true in the Netherlands. The gentleman just walked by. They are a low power distance country. We are a higher power distance country, and it's well researched.
It's given.
Right? Hofstede
Correct.
And all that. So what we have markers of progress, and markers of progress are: I joined as STE1, I became STE2, then I became STE3, then I became an architect, then I became. So we have these markers in our minds. Our government services has also trained us to think in a certain way that that you can't have to avoid biases. They would say seniority based. That if you've spent a certain amount of time in a certain role, you are eligible to be promoted, right? So in our minds, our mental model of being promoted and to make progress
Is proportionate to time, which is incorrect.
I would not say incorrect. When you're dealing with a bureaucracy at a massive scale, that is not a bad solution.
But you just have to stay alive, right? You just have to keep breathing, and you'll get promoted after every 6 years. Although that is not the case. There also ratings are there,
Yes.
even at government level.
Yes.
But we have seen at startups, and I talk to a lot of founders, and they say that, boss, one ek cheez samajh lo. All founder community says that. Understand one thing very clearly, that somebody 17 years, somebody 20 years, somebody 25 years does not mean success to you, because it's a matter of their age. If they keep breathing and if they don't do terribly bad, they'll keep getting promoted. If there's somebody sensible, he'll do well. But fitment is everything.
Sorry, I will again take a step back and present a way of thinking, right? There are 3 ways in which we organize people,
Okay.
right? There are crews, where process is paramount, right? What I mean by that is you flew in, let's say, this morning. It doesn't matter who the pilot was.
True.
If the pilot falls sick, another pilot who has been certified to fly an A320 Neo. It's literally you pull this
Replace.
pilot out and replace that person, and the system will work perfectly because it is designed to work that way. If an air hostess falls, there is no dependency on an air hostess, a baggage handler, a pilot. There are no superstar pilots. There are superstar pilots in the Air Force.
In the Air Force.
But in commercial aviation, a superstar pilot is a liability.
Correct. It's a risk.
It's a risk. It's a business risk. So you want people who will follow that 300-page IATA manual.
Bilkul.
Exactly point to point.
Yeah, discipline.
So I have, let's say I'm a pilot, I've never met my co-pilot. But we have absolutely no need to know each other because we both know the IATA manual. So in a crew setup, the manual is primary. The people are trained to follow the process. You don't want superstars there, by definition.
By definition.
Right? Your process has to be good enough that even if the weather is bad,
Elaborate, correct.
and that guy is whatever, he's flown for the... See there, the process defines how many hours the pilot can be up. It defines how many breaks they need.
The guy who writes a process is very important.
Is very important. But the others are all cogs in a wheel, by definition.
Correct.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Those systems need to work that way.
As long as those wheels understand their role and enjoys their role.
Correct. So again, it's a fitment problem. It is not a question of whether this is better or that is better. A second way to organize is, we call them work groups, where I'm an expert in something. This person's an expert in something else, and third person is expert in something else. The three of us come together. We all have our areas of expertise. We work together on a problem. The reason we are there is because of the problem. I have one way to solve the, a contribution to solve that problem. This person has a contribution. That person has a contribution. There's a shipping tanker stuck in the Suez Canal. That's not a crew problem, right? That is a work group problem. There are experts in haulage.
Project.
Yes. There are experts in haulage. There are experts in shipping. There are experts in buoyancy. Everybody comes together, works on the problem, finishes the project. Tanker is free, disperse. The third way that we can organize is through teams. We use the word teams very loosely, but actually if you think about it is, we are a group of people. We work on, the problems may change, the processes may change, but the people don't change. Because we are a team.
Example?
So many successful startups, even if you look at the early days of the Indian IT industry, they were a core group of people.
Correct.
The most celebrated ones, of course, are the Mindtree founders, the Infosys founders.
Flipkart guys.
The Flipkart guys. They got together. Do you think they didn't have to pivot?
50 times.
50 times, exactly. So they couldn't have said, here's my manual, I'm going to follow this manual. Won't work. Or
Correct.
we are all experts in this, we have come up with a plan, let's do it. That plan would have failed, like you said, 50 times. But the people didn't change. The people had, presumably, high competence, complementary skills, who came together, who had a vision.
And very good sync within themselves.
Yes. And actually, if you go into the details of a lot of founder teams, there is actually a lot of friction. But the friction also builds value because it brings clarity, because they have a North Star. They have a North Star and they say, see, that is what we want to be. I want to take the left road, you want to take the right road. We will have disagreements and we should have disagreements. But as long as we both know that that is where we
The
want to
intent
go.
is correct. The
intent
goal
is
is correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
And the third element is where culture plays a much bigger role. Right? In work groups, competence plays a much bigger role. In crew, the process plays the most important role. In teams, culture plays the most important role. A lot of GCCs are hungry for that cultural alignment. We tend to think, because of past, the way we've grown up in the IT industry, we tend to think process. Our instinct sometimes in India,
Manual बना दो.
मैनुअल बना दो,
SOP बना दो.
SOP बना दो, पब्लिश कर दो, उसको रिवीजन
0.0, 2.0, 2.1.
That becomes secondary to trust and alignment when you're moving away into GCCs.
Okay.
And trust and alignment, by definition, cannot come in a day.
Cannot communicate. That says that culture is strategy for a breakfast.
Culture is strategy for breakfast. So if you're an MBA graduate and आपने देखा है कि you're somebody with a high need for change, and you go to a GCC.
You go to
and
the
the GCC says, look, spend 3 years understanding us. That person will be extremely frustrated.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much they pay him.
नहीं होगा उसे.
नहीं होगा. So a lot of what you're doing really, right, which you called people understanding themselves and coming from within, is to look at what it is, who we are, and is that a good fit for what this particular opportunity is.
Correct. In fact, on culture, if you see all the conglomerates, because we eventually are a talent management company, we provide talent to companies, and now we have started a consulting on culture because we got to know
Right.
that small startups
Yes.
with a 10 20 15 people thinks
Yes.
that कि ये तो बहुत बाद में आएगा,
हाँ.
ये अभी आएगा,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And if you don't bring cultures and operating systems now,
Now.
you are gone.
Correct.
Because the more people you hire, they will go different ways. And if you see Reliance, because one of our client and we work closely with them, we get to know that what we were discussing in the morning also. If you Gautam Adani ji, he is not an MBA from top B school. All the people he trusts, all the people Mukesh Bhai trusts, they are, even Modi ji for that matter, or any conglomerate that you pick, there is a trusted group of individuals.
It is a team.
It's a team.
It is a team.
Yes,
Yes.
team. And वो they saying कि ये जीवन तो इनको दे दिया. They have done lot for us और ये जीवन तो इनको दे दिया. And this people, group of people, even IS, Indian Administrative Service, what is it? Generalist group of set of people जो आज water में है, कल defense में चला जाएगा, but बंदा नहीं बदलेगा. Generalist बना दिया and Tata Administrative Services.
Correct.
So these people then can work on different problems and this has given long-term success. इनके बिना बाकी दो चल ही नहीं सकते.
Correct.
First and second, what you just said.
Yes.
Because if you do not have a strong core,
Yes.
even in IPL, because I
Yes.
take a lot of references to cricket,
Okay.
two teams, Chennai and Mumbai, highest amount of trophies, their core is very strong.
The core is very strong. Yes.
Never changed.
Yes.
आरसीबी के पास एक ही विराट कोहली है, इनके पास 5-5 लोग हैं जो पहले साल से है.
Sorry, I'm going to go completely off topic because आपने cricket की बात छेड़ दी. So my favorite example is what Shane Warne did with
Rajasthan
Royals
Royals
in the first
season 1.
Because they were not the most expensive.
Season 1 when the auction completed, everybody बोला कि क्यों आईपीएल करा रहे हो, डेक्कन को दे दो, डेक्कन को कब दे दो और राजस्थान को मत खिलाओ, कोई गेम ही मत खिलाओ, ये बहुत खराब टीम है.
Correct, but that's where having a north star, having culture, having fitment,
हाँ.
part of what Rajasthan even now does better than I think a lot of other teams is brings that alignment among the team,
हाँ.
which is to say that we know that we are a B team, right? We're not spending the AA money, but let's bring together. It's almost like the Moneyball movie, right?
As a group, we are
As
powerful.
a group, we are powerful, right? And so that's the if we are not willing to sign up with GCCs for a relatively longer period of time and understand and align with that culture and the expectations of what is to be delivered, then if you're somebody with a very high need for change, I want to explore the world, I need to travel a lot, go to consulting.
Go to consulting,
Go to
correct.
consulting. Don't come to GCCs because the GCCs will reward these behaviors. Part of I think what we have done, you said what are the things that we are doing right, and this was my very long response to that. But one of the things that we are not doing as well is we are still hiring for skills. A GCC gets
Wow.
set up. You say that there's a list of positions that are published, right? And they've hired an agency, a person,
Yeah.
in my case, a person, to take care of things. And what does that person do? They have a list of positions. And how are the positions defined? SDE1, this bracket, this age thing, they need to have
Persona जो 6 चीजें लिखते हैं.
which is the same JD that gets circulated for all PM positions. for
And
Java
more
positions.
importantly, in all wrong channels. More channels. So you
I wouldn't say wrong. It is a non-focused channels that you just open it up to everybody.
different channels.
To different channels.
Yeah.
That also talks to a lack of an organizing principle. If there is an organizing principle that says that, okay, this is who we are. Now, we've spoken about the need for students to understand who they are. But it's equally important for a GCC to understand who they are. So
Correct.
the initial leadership team, so when I set up the GCC, the founder of the company literally used to have a call with me daily. 5 to 7 times a week. Because it was so important that we align. And there's a term that's called belief level alignment.
Oh wow.
You need to have belief level alignment if you are going to make it work across
Correct.
and at scale, right? Because in the absence of belief level alignment, what you've been reduced to is 6 Java के बंदे चाहिए, 3 product manager चाहिए, IM से ले लो.
Or deadline.
Deadline. Yes, and we want them by this time. The reason many GCCs go through a bit of an identity crisis 3 to 5 years after they are founded is first year is all set up and there's a lot of
Dilute हो
activity.
गया पूरा.
Dilute नहीं हुआ sir. What happens is that they don't have a strong sense of identity. Right? So in the dilution is not in the cost arbitrage. The dilution is not in the skills. You had the right skills, but the dilution is in the culture. The dilution is in the alignment.
Yeah.
So that's where the dilution is happening. And at which point everybody goes to a retreat and they say, look, this is not what we expected. क्यों? हमने तो अपने जो भी प्रोजेक्ट दिया हमने डिलीवर कर दिया।
करेक्ट KRA तो
क्वालिटी
matched
देखो,
है।
क्वालिटी देखो।
Yeah.
आपका 3 बग था, इंडिया से सिर्फ 1 बग आया। बट दैट्स नॉट व्हाट दे आर सेइंग,
Very interesting. Lovely.
right? What they are saying is, have you understood our business? Are you now able to contribute now that you have product managers from IIMs sitting there? Can you now help us grow? That is the question.
Can you think of a next feature?
Can you think of the next wave? Forget feature, I mean, right?
Yeah.
Can you
Feature
think
तो
of the
JD का ही हिस्सा है.
हाँ.
Correct.
Can you think of the next wave in which the market is changing and therefore the way we must evolve? Think about, I'm going to go back to that, what I said about complex environments. In complex environments, there is emergent behavior, which means that you can't do only one thing. You have to do 2-3 things, see which one works, and then follow that path.
Correct.
That is very hard if there is a team sitting in India and they are saying, my job is to deliver this. Right? What the aspiration and that is the direction in which GCCs are growing. There's a growing recognition of this. There's a lot of work being done. HR is becoming a critical business function in GCCs. That's because they are the ones with the hand on the lever to make sure that this transition happens, right? So HR leaders are now incredibly important in GCCs.
Especially talent acquisition, guys. We have recently done a training for a European MNC with presence in 25 countries, 160-year-old company.
Right.
And they realize a need that our talent acquisition folks need to be revamped, and they need to be shown a mirror of they need to be shown a view of a CEO's mind.
Correct.
Because talent acquisition guys, and when we heard them, they are also right. Saying कि सर पोजीशन तो 2 दिन में भरनी है ना, आप जो इतना लंबा ज्ञान दे रहे हो, हम कहाँ से इतना स्क्रीनिंग करेंगे? सो फिर हमने सोर्सिंग पे चैनल चेंज किए. द पॉइंट इज talent acquisition is very crucial. There's a saying in English that says, if you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything.
One of the mistakes that I made in my GCC journey was that I hired too early. The US person, obviously a vastly experienced entrepreneur, he said, Avinash, don't be in a hurry to hire. But apna to pata hai. Reach out to 3 channels, open it up, get people in, and we made mistakes with the people we hired.
We say hire slow, fire fast.
Right.
Hire very, very slow.
Yes.
But don't say, so there are 2 studies I want to talk about. One is from by Adam Grant, the Wharton professor.
Yes.
There's a very famous podcast also on this all-star team always failed. Now, when I heard this for the first time and read that,
Yes.
it was mind-boggling. What
Yes.
it is saying is, you pick any sports team.
Yes.
You pick a team of astronauts who went together, all-star
Correct.
team. They don't put all-star team.
Yes.
Messi, Ronaldo, even if you say 2023 Indian team who lost, RCB कभी नहीं जीता, अफ्रीका कभी नहीं जीता, right? India in this peak here, जब चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी के बाद पूरा 6 साल 7 साल इंडिया कभी नहीं जीता. ऑल स्टार जीता कब? जब एक सुपरस्टार था, सचिन तेंदुलकर के हो, विराट कोहली के लो, धोनी, एक सुपरस्टार हो, 2-4 अबोव एवरेज प्लेयर हो जो वर्ल्ड के टॉप 10 में आते हो, बाकी एवरेज प्लेयर हो जो मिक्स बहुत अच्छा बनाते हो.
Exactly.
और ऐसी ही टीम जीतती है.
हाँ.
मेसी के अराउंड रिवॉल्व होती है टीम, 2-4 बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छे फॉरवर्ड है, एंड दे बिल्ट अ कॉम्बिनेशन.
Sorry, I know you are saying we are digressing, but that again goes back to the thing that it is a team sport. It is not a work group sport.
वर्क ग्रुप स्पोर्ट नहीं
Work
है.
group sport नहीं है. So all-star work group बना के if you ask them to play in a team game,
वो नहीं होगा.
नहीं होगा. Because the nature of the beast is different.
Correct. So I remember one story. So there was a conflict in my team, and there was 2 individuals having a problem in such a way that they can't stand each other.
Right.
And they came to me, and both of them were my star performer.
Right.
Now what do I do? So they said that, no sir, I'll resign only if this person stays in a team, because that person was also not performer at that time. And the other person says that, no, I don't want to work because I know that he's a star performer, you can't let him go, and I don't want to put you in trouble. But I see a huge, tremendous potential in that candidate. I wanted to keep both.
Right.
As a TL. So I said, let's do one thing. You don't have to stand each other. You don't have to work together. You do A, you do B. These are non-collaborative.
Right.
I'll ensure that
Yes.
your part doesn't cross. But
Yes.
why should I lose? So that's
Yes.
where what you are saying makes sense. That a beast of the nature of the game.
Nature of the game.
You don't have to sacrifice on any of this. But if your nature of game is such that you are as strong as your weakest player, then you have to build a team.
Correct.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Sure. So if we now just build a persona of what kind of personality thrive in product management, what kind of personality thrive in consulting, and what in GCC, what that would be?
Consulting, and this is now a rule of thumb. This is not a rule of the market. There may be experts who disagree with this. This is simply my experience having lived through consulting careers, right? Consulting, the best consultants that I have seen have lived in 2 different places at the same time. What do I mean by that? They are children of parents who were in transferable jobs, let's say. So they were Kannadigas, Tamilians, Marathi people who had to perforce live in Bengal, Delhi, where at home you have a certain culture. You step out on the street, you're dealing with a different culture, right? So you see both are valid, both are valuable, and they learn something from both, right? If you are a person who's from Nagpur and you've lived all your life in Nagpur and you're very happy and settled in this culture, the nature of this person is different from this other person who's from Nagpur but has spent 3 years in Bangalore, 5 years in Delhi, 3 years in Jaipur, and then had a foreign posting in Dhaka. Parent has had it, but they've grown up seeing their worldview accepts many different things compared to somebody who's grown up in a home and an outside that is both consistent. Right? There's no dissonance in their world.
Correct.
They belong to a certain place. They're very proud of belonging to that particular place, and they're very happy and successful in that place. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no right or wrong.
Correct. We are defining personalities.
We're defining personalities. But if you've been forced to look at something that is different and then understand why it is like that, that gives you a huge advantage to being a consultant. Because what a consultant needs to have is an ability to see patterns. That this particular pattern is happening in all these different places. There's a common way where things have made progress, where things have worked. I'm now going to take the lessons from those and apply them here in what appears to be a different context, but it's not, because the underlying pattern is the same. Right? That is what a consultant does. If you want to be a truly world-class consultant, you have to be able to see those patterns. Right? There is no course in any MBA that I'm aware of that says spotting patterns. Right? It's almost a life skill. And I'm not saying it can't be learned. It can definitely be learned. But that, if you see that in yourself, I would strongly recommend a consulting career because you're likely to excel in it. Not because it pays well and you can see the world. You can go on vacation with many other careers, right? But you will enjoy it. And because you enjoy it, you will do so well in it that the industry will significantly reward you for it. Right?
Two more traits for consulting if you buy that. One is that every time you are in a group setting, you are discussing something, you open a sheet and you try to structure it. That let's go one by one, let's think this. And every time when somebody asks this कि fourth day पे ये करेंगे, fifth day पे ये करेंगे, आप बोल रहे हो जाना क्यों है? कहाँ जाना है? कितने लोग हैं? So you are also ability to zoom in and zoom out.
Correct. Actually, what you said is incredibly critical. It is very true for very successful top leaders, and it is very true for consultants, which is where, if you see, particularly in the US, a lot of people who grow in consulting then make a lateral career move to the C-suite.
CXOs. Absolutely.
Because they're
the best fit for that.
They're the best fit because they've learned the ability to go into the details, understand it, and then zoom out to understand the strategic implications of those details.
Correct.
Right? So that is another core consulting skill. A third consulting skill is the ability to communicate. Ability to communicate in a way that the other person hears. Right?
In his language.
In his or their language.
Their language.
So there was, I was working in the US, and there was, from a very different context, right? I was in a meeting, and there was this person who was, it was in the Midwest, a fairly conservative, traditional part of the US. And everybody's wearing suits, and it's a very formal setting, and there's this person who's come in, he was from a different part of the country, I won't name which state, who was dressed very brightly, right? Dressed very, very brightly. And this lady who's the VP, she stops the presentation after 15 minutes. And the person is super competent who is presenting, very competent, master at his field. And he says, "Sir, your personality is so loud that I can't hear a word you're saying." Right? And so that person should have understood who he's speaking to. And
उस जगह का सत्य क्या है जो हम आज सुबह बात कर रहे हैं?
बिल्कुल.
What is the truth होता है?
Exactly. And these are all very smart, intelligent, open-minded people, right? But it's just that the nature of that place demands you to behave in a certain manner, and that a consultant needs to understand.
Correct.
Right? Otherwise, you won't be a very successful consultant across contexts.
Because solving a problem is not only a job, to explaining and selling that idea.
Selling and then landing the solution.
Landing the solution that's where you get money.
That's where you get money. That's where you get rewarded. Because at the end of the day, the reward is for landing the solution.
Solving the problem.
Solving the problem.
Correct.
Right?
Product management.
Product management is it's very interesting. There's some overlap, but not as much overlap as you would think. The personas are actually reasonably different. A consultant has spotted a pattern, and they've said, okay, I'm now going to apply my intelligence, my education, my understanding of the world to getting an insight. defining an insight is very different from taking an insight, which could be first hand, it could be second hand, and translating that into something real, tangible that is in production. Right? So the attention to detail, consultants, high need for change. Product management, attention to detail. You have to see those insights.
You have to assume all the nuances.
Yes, and you have to then translate it into something that can be built. Now, a consultant has the luxury of saying in a PPT that, here are your trade-offs. Here's what I recommend. But the amount of trade-offs that a product manager is saying, I have this skill, this is my schedule, this is my budget, which of this part of the vision can I take and turn into an MVP that will actually succeed, needs a huge amount of trade-offs. The ability to make trade-offs is critical. And it's not a question of, I'm going to throw this out. It's not very simplistic like saying, I'm going to apply this framework. I'm going to keep the top 3 things. The top 3 things may not work very well together. They may not be internally consistent.
Correct.
So to understand from a big picture and derive that here are the parts of the whole that fit together to give value as an MVP to a customer is something that product managers need.
And I would like to add a deep understanding of human behavior and human psychology. कब बंदा नेक्स्ट कर देगा और कब बंदा बैक दबा देगा, अगर प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर को नहीं पता है तो कुछ और ही बना देगा.
वहाँ पे there are two views of the world. I don't think they're conflicting views of the world. I think they work together.
Okay.
There's one brand of product management that is practiced which is very data driven, where people say everything is a metric. Where they say measure this. You want to take a decision of whether it is this or this, do an A/B test, whichever succeeds, you do it. Thoda sa, I find that a little bit of a paint by numbers. For everything you run an experiment, right? The real work of product management is being done one step before that. How did you even decide
कि ये बनाना है?
कि ये बनाना है? That is where the skill of, there's an art and there's a science. So product management, when we speak of product management, we often speak of the sides of product management.
Correct.
But there's an art to it. And the art needs the ability to understand the big picture, understand how pieces fit together, make trade-offs, and create something which is then executed as a science.
And there is a huge component of communication in product manager in the way they build the product. I was just talking to my product manager two days back and said that if you list all the things that Paytm does or PhonePe does, and if I ask you to put it on a screen, you will be overwhelmed. आप फोन पे कभी खोलोगे नहीं. But इतना अच्छे से they put up in a thing कि आपको कुछ दिखता ही नहीं है. जब फोन पे खोलो खाली दिखता है, आपको वही दिखता है जो आपको चाहिए.
Correct. And the art there is also ecosystem orchestration. I call it ecosystem orchestration.
Okay.
A product manager is balancing the needs from sales and marketing, who are screaming that they are not meeting their targets because you have not put this feature in the product. Right? So there's pressure from there. There's pressure from line saying, this is your budget. This is what you have. Right? A successful product manager is a little bit of a politician. And I don't mean, see, we tend to have a negative view of politics, but politics is the art of the possible. Right? That's what politics is. It's the art of the possible. He or she has to look at this entire thing and say, what is possible? It is not an unconstrained role. Consulting can sometimes be a slightly unconstrained role. This is the joy of consulting. But product needs you to think as an ecosystem orchestrator, almost a mini politician, to say, this is what I want to achieve. And see, the best politicians are those who do all the jugards in the world, but they have
get the job done.
They get the job done for a good cause or
for a good cause, of course.
Right? That distinguishes good politicians versus bad politicians.
True.
But hopefully, your agenda as a product manager is to be able to bring the system together so that there's value.
Avinash ji, how much money one can make in GCC at different levels of his career, and if he stays longer, how much he can make over the period of time?
So the answer to most interesting questions is it depends, right? But having said that, to give people a certain view of the ranges, right? And don't take these literally, dear viewers. But roughly, you can expect about a 12 to 18 lakh range for a business analyst and domain positions. For product managers, it's in the range of about 15 to 25. I know that's a reasonably large range, but it also depends on what people have done prior to their MBA and a lot of their background and things like that. From a growth perspective in GCCs, as a general rule of thumb, GCCs do tend to pay well, right? So you shouldn't really be concerned about being underpaid relative to the market if you're looking at roles in GCCs. From everything that I've seen, GCCs are very, very competitive, if not better than the market average typically. The only thing that you would want to think about is you typically don't get as much equity with GCCs. There aren't too many cases where people get stock options as compared to the general market, right? And that is one wealth creation avenue that may be slightly underutilized by GCCs right now. But from a pure salary perspective and a comp perspective, I think you'll find that GCCs are super competitive.
Right. And so product management, a job family, as a job family also is now coming to GCCs?
Definitely. I think one of the biggest growth areas in GCCs is going to be products. Because what's happening is that the wave of GCCs it's been building over the last few years. And what is increasingly happening is that they are now maturing. And what that means is that they've settled down their basic hiring processes, their basic management processes, their basic delivery processes. Now the attention is shifting to how do we create more innovations, more products. So there are some GCCs that are now thinking, when we have all this capability in this market, why not build products for India? That's a conversation that's happening in a lot of GCC, especially as the Indian market is becoming more mature as well and is growing rapidly. So there's a lot of interest in that. Both these are driving the need for product managers to be based out of India. That means that you're a product manager and you're doing work which is for the Indian market, or it may be for innovations for the global market. And both these will need a team of smart, very talented product managers. Again, it's a question of build versus buy, right? Do you get senior product managers in from the market on a horizontal level, or do you hire smart people from colleges? There will obviously be some lateral hiring, but a majority of the positions are being filled by top-notch MBA grads.
Right. So before we go to hiring and how they hire and where they go from, there's extensively we want to cover it. But before that, there's a global shift in geopolitics and new tariff is being introduced and a lot of things. So and we talked about cost as a key component of GCC.
Yes.
Now, if tomorrow cost increases, does that value proposition of setting up GCCs in India will still stay relevant?
So there are multiple reasons why GCCs are becoming so popular and so prevalent, right? If cost arbitrage was simply the one single driver, then what would happen is that any change in geopolitics, in tariffs, in salary levels would all have a significant impact. But at the scale that we're talking about the sheer number of jobs that are going to be generated by these 2,600 odd GCCs. That means that it is not only about cost arbitrage of individual roles. It's about access to an entire cohort and an ecosystem of skills, right? It's not one cloud engineer, one product manager, one AI tester, whatever, right? It's about that whole ecosystem, the ability to innovate, the ability to build that entirely from one center. And there are very, very few other places in the world where you can do it at such a in such a cost-effective manner. And that's not going to change just because of some movement in currencies and arbitrage. So I think definitely that the move towards GCCs are here to stay. I also think that the geopolitical tensions will iron themselves out in time, right? So it is variability, but it'll settle down. And what we'll see is that there's not too much change to the very positive trajectory that we're seeing for GCCs.
No, I fully agree that there is a lot to offer when it comes to India to be a preferred partner to build a GCC, a stable government, a supply of a great talent. Once somebody asked a minister in India saying that why there is before Pune became an IT hub, it became an education hub.
Right.
And then a lot of university came and then it became an IT hub.
Correct.
Similarly, in India, if you see FT50 QS listing, there are a lot of Indian universities emerging. IIM 8 IIM is now there, ISB is there. So there is a talent pool, a steady supply of talent pool, and
yes,
also give a reassurance to these companies that they have the talent that they are looking for.
So one thing I want to add there is, see, again, it's very underappreciated, but if you want to manufacture many things in the world, right, not just in India or in the US, people will realize that no matter what the tariffs, China is the best place to build them. Why is that? That's not because there's one firm in China that can do it. They have an ecosystem.
Correct.
They have the ecosystem of the suppliers. They have the ecosystem of people coming together in a space where there can be a good exchange. They have the logistics. They have so many small things. They have so many layers, which put together contributes to it. Indian IT, we tend to think about it as the Wipros, the Infosys, the TCS, the Cognizants of the world, right? But it's not. It is the startups that are providing the dynamism in thinking, which feed the GCCs, it feeds the large companies. The large companies are giving the volume, what they're doing in terms of trainings. So there's this, and how many trainers and facilities, and there's just this massive ecosystem in people in places like Bangalore and Hyderabad and all that, which is unseen and unmatched. It's not that easy to replicate in other places, as even other Indian cities are discovering, right?
Yeah.
Bangalore and Hyderabad are fairly sticky.
Makes sense. So, coming back to how do they hire? So, first question would be GCCs. You have said GCC from zero to and set up every team of it. So, what percent comes from campus recruit and what percent comes through lateral?
I think at the leadership level,
Everything comes
where
laterally.
It does come laterally. It does come laterally. There, the real question is the answer to the question: how can we trust this person?
Correct.
Right. So there is a huge layer of trust that must be established with that leadership team before you really dive in. Once you do that, there are certain seeding positions, and these seeding positions typically would come laterally. These would be fairly senior
VPs,
architects,
yeah.
VPs, who would be hired. Now, this is where things get interesting, because if you get the right person at the top, but you have the VP layer, which you spend less time because you think you've already established that with the top layer,
Yeah.
right? So you spend a little less time with the next layer, and that can turn out to be a mistake, because those are the people who are taking a lot of the day-to-day actions, the decisions.
Absolutely.
And if we don't spend the time and energy to align those people,
They're going to set the culture.
they are going to set the culture. So one of the things that we often see is that the hiring mechanisms, the hiring approach, the kind of people that are coming in, the expectations that are being set to the people who are coming in are all reflective of the VP layer. And so it becomes super critical that, one, you have the right people at that level, and two, that you've taken enough time and effort to onboard them into the GCC's way of thinking. Otherwise, I think that drives a fair amount of dissonance when it comes to GCC performance over years. Last couple of days, I've been looking at Glassdoor. This is an area of real interest for me. So I've been looking at the Glassdoor reviews for GCCs, as opposed to startups, as opposed to other companies that are operating in the Indian space. And a lot of GCCs say that there is work-life balance, there's good salary, there's a good culture, but there isn't growth. Right? People feel stagnant. They feel that the decisions are being made somewhere else in some cases. But the reality is, nobody's stopping them. It's just that the rules of this particular game are slightly different. But the rules are very clear if you understand them. So we have to set up GCCs that align with those expectations. And what we'll see is that if we are able to consistently deliver value and innovation, there's no stopping growth.
Correct. So, what are they doing wrong in terms of hiring from the middle management? You said that they give so much emphasis on skill and not on culture. But what are the other mistakes that GCCs are doing while hiring?
I think one thing that a lot of GCCs do is put a time on it. They're putting a time-bound targets to say that we want to grow to 200 by the end of the year. The question is, do you have the right mechanisms to, one, define who is the right hire at the middle level, and two, are you taking the time to do the right amount of one, screening, and two, expectation setting before you're getting middle managers on board? So what happens is that there is a huge amount of time and effort spent at the top. There is also a good amount of time and effort spent at getting the right people from colleges at the entry level. But at the middle, because we assume that it's a solved problem. We assume that because we've got the right people coming in at the bottom, we've got the leadership aligned, so let's scale.
Yeah.
Right? And then it becomes a question of growing and hitting those targets, and growth as defined by the number of people who come on board. That is often, I think, pulling down GCCs from a longer perspective. Sometimes there's a saying that sometimes you have to move slowly to run fast. Right? So that if you take the time and get the right middle management in, then nothing really stops the growth of the GCC over time.
So, how do they hire middle management? Are there agencies like us who come in, or they believe in in-house TAs?
I think there's a little bit of a mix. A lot of some of the GCCs are relying on partners in India, and those are fairly the traditional ways of hiring, right? That there's be a mass outreach, a set of people, etc. Where I see the industry moving to is using insights data to be able to make some of those decisions. For very senior roles, it's very common to see psychometric tests. But what we are beginning to see, and I think you guys do this as well, is to bring some of that testing and coaching even at the entry to middle level hiring. I think that's the direction in which the industry is.
So, very right. What we are trying to do is at B school level, we understand what this candidate is about. We call it Know Yourself report. And then we explain them sectors, then we explain them roles, and then we do 3 to 4 one-on-one with each candidate to ensure that they pick the right role for themselves, as you were explaining. So they're fit to the sector, they're fit to the role, and they're in love with that, and they don't see that as a chariot to go from point A to point B, but point B.
Correct.
Else they'll leave in no time.
Yes.
And it is not beneficiary to the org as well as for the individual.
Yes.
So we are saying if we can help them envision their 5, 10, 15 years in every role, they'll be able to, and we can bet on them. Because we have a lot of data. So on each candidate that we train in this B schools, we have 50 to 70 data points on each candidate. Now with their permission and their college permission, if we share it with an employer, our value proposition is very simple. That you are taking a 30 lakh bat or 20 lakh bat on a 30-minute interview and a 1 page of resume.
Right.
Let me help you with more data.
Correct.
And the student there sitting next to you is not only very much prepared, they are also very clear on why they are in this room and not the other room.
Correct.
Because there's so much intervention has happened. As we were discussing earlier, the entire generation has picked career based on what is trending, which is, I think, now is relevant because now we have a freedom of choices.
Correct.
And that's where we are trying to do this matchmaking.
So it's not new that we have this herd mentality, right? When I was going to college, there were literally 2 choices, right? If you study well, you could be a doctor or you could be an engineer. Now what is happening is that there is a fair amount of choice available, but there is still a lot of pressure that there are certain things that are thought of as cool, certain things that you think give you the best packages. Right? Which is not necessarily true. I think as long as you excel in any field, the top people who are getting paid at the top of the field is all very comparable. Right? Nobody's getting paid too much lesser. It's just that some of these take a little more time in the beginning, but it's really about the match between the individual and the role. Because if you're in the wrong place, then you're one of those statistics that you were sharing earlier, that there are so many students who are leaving their first job very quickly after joining. Because they go there and they realize that that marginal difference in the paycheck is not worth
The pain that
pain that you're undergoing on a daily basis in the wrong place.
So I'll tell you, we have created a calculator on our app, which says that any job description and you will get to see that what is a fitment. Now in that fitment, we are saying pay is one, but I say what matters to you? Location matters, pay matters, the nature of job that you are doing matters, the aspiration which is where you want to go versus this job takes you there or not matters. You put percentage to it and people can build it in over Excel also.
Right.
And you build it. So you don't put too much focus on pay. So there is a graph, very interesting graph says that in y-axis you put money and x-axis you put happiness. How much happiness can give you? Not a philosophical answer, very logical answer.
Yes.
So that how that graph look like? So that graph goes like this, up and up, when as long as you make more money. But then it at certain point plateau.
Correct. Because you met the hygiene needs of that individual.
Correct. And what is that plateau number? In US context, it was $60,000.
Yes.
So if you see purchasing price parity, it comes around. I'm not claiming it to be correct, but 1.6, 1.7 lakh rupees a month. If you make, after whatever money you will make, you're gonna go on a same restaurant in the city. You're gonna wear the same class of shirt. You know, the choices. So I'm saying people run after money after an MBA because they have loan, 25 lakh, 30 lakh rupees of loan. They have a lot of pressure. But at the same time, what job they are doing, if they get into something wrong because they were not fully aware, they have 2 options. Either to keep doing it and show stability and get stuck somewhere in the long run, or move quickly and look something else, and the gap in which if they create a gap, that also goes against them.
Correct.
So it's a very important that is a placement is a one-time activity. You take a pause, you understand yourself, you understand the sector's roles, the typical day. We say that don't prepare for an interview, prepare for the 8 hours of the work that you're gonna do, and sign up if you think that is exciting.
Yes.
Right? So we say that what are the unspoken truth about GCCs that people should know?
I think there's a fair amount of homework that people need to do. It's very easy for us to say that, hey, you know what, people who are going into a GCC need to align with the culture, they need to understand the expectations, what is innovation in that space. The unspoken truth is, in a lot of cases, the GCCs themselves are not always very aware of what it is that is special to them, that is unique to them, because they are in that environment. They take a lot of things for granted. And only when you go to a different locale, when you go to a different city, a different country, and you're setting up, and say, hey, they're not behaving the way we behave. That's when it becomes apparent even to the parent company. So it's a hard problem because it's easy for us to sit here and say, hey, you know what, the GCC should make sure that they communicate the culture to the people who are coming in. But often
they can't think of it.
They can't think of it. It's an unknown, right? They don't even know that it's a key part of their culture, except when they see something else being done and then say, hey, that's not how we do things about here. Then people turn around and say, okay, but you didn't tell us that this is how things are done here, right? So there is the unspoken reality is that there is a learning that is happening for the parent GCC as well. They are, in addition to the Indian entity learning about the parent, there's a cross-pollination happening where the parent is learning about India, about the people here. Once you get over that hump, and a lot of getting over that hump is to do with awareness. As long as there is clarity and awareness and the shared North Star that we were talking about, I think both parties, the GCC model will be a great success.
Lovely. And what are the courses or certification that one can do to get into prepare themselves better for any role coming for capability centers, knowledge centers?
I like to think that part of the reason that I'm here, right, is that there is nothing readily available for people.
Correct.
There are just a few thought leaders are sharing their thoughts. But what might be very interesting is that if there was a curation of courses on, let's say, Coursera or any of these platforms, that would, I don't think there is one silver bullet. It has to be a curated bundle of courses that will do that. I'm sorry, I don't have a more
watch this podcast here. Again.
Watch this podcast again, because what these podcasts are doing is bringing the industry knowledge out to the listeners, right, to the viewers, and that's how you learn from other people's experiences.
Correct. And we will also bundle a couple of courses that can help you into product management consulting, and put it in a chat description, so you can go through that. And no, lovely interacting with you, Avinash sir, and thank you for accepting our invitation and come here talk about product management consulting and GCCs. There is no detailed data available on GCCs on YouTube like we have created today, and I hope it will help a lot of students when they are preparing for an interview next day. There's a knowledge center coming or a capability center coming, and they understand about this. And if with this video somebody gets placed, that's where we see our mission get success. So Absolutely. And not only the students appearing for final placements, this is also for the working professionals who have next interview at any global capability center, is coming from an industry and you want to know more about GCC, how it works, and this video, if that can help them get placed, we consider this as a success.
That would be my privilege. Thank you very much for having me.
So this was another episode of Clarity with the Career Company. Follow us for similar videos where we decode different sectors, different roles, and we listen from CXOs. Follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram as well, where we give you actionable advice on career.